It's a new year, and you know what that means? It's time for more fits of whining. And this is going to be a big year for gaming with Grand Theft Auto 6 and the Nintendo Switch 2 launching this year. There is so much to talk about this year.
But picking what to talk about first is always tricky, so I guess for now I can just look at some mail.
For real?
Sir Nicus NCS Studios, you've allowed your backlog to grow too much. Begin tackling it or we will have to intervene. Well shit, wasn't expecting that, but hey, gives me an obvious game to start the year with.
Persona 5, where could I possibly begin? This here is a game I've wanted to play for years. So much about it seemed appealing to me and it spent years on my wish list. In 2022, it received a port to Nintendo Switch, which I picked up in spring of 2023, but I made the fatal mistake of buying it 2 weeks before Tears of the Kingdom released, which meant I was not trying to get invested in any other games at this point. Because of that, it sat on my shelf for a year until March of 2024 when I decided it was finally time. It was a slow weekend and I was looking for something to do, so I decided to pop in that cartridge and see what happened. I played it for the next 5 hours and fell in love. I had heard so much praise for it. I've met so many people who say it's one of their favorite games. It's changed their lives. It's one of the greatest pieces of media they've ever consumed. And playing through the first 5 hours, I 100% understood why. I got sucked in, fell in love with the characters, world, gameplay, and for the next week, I was hooked. I'd play it when I got home from work for a few hours, and the following weekend, I sunk a few more hours into it, completing the second palace before proclaiming that I was done for now. Believe me, I wanted to keep playing, but I just didn't have the time, unfortunately.
But with the Phantom Thieves on my ass, it's definitely time to pick this game up again. And besides, I've really wanted to play through this game so I can finally say I finally played Persona 5 Royal.
But of course, before I spend the next 50 minutes rambling on about this masterpiece, let's talk about its background. Obviously, as the name suggests, it's the 5th entry in the Persona series. I didn't know this for a while, but Persona itself is actually a spin-off of the Shin Megami Tensei series. Older Persona games said Shin Megami Tensei on the cover, but Persona 5 leaves you out to dry. It's just a weird fact, like a Persona spin-off is a spin-off of a spin-off. I'm not too knowledgeable of the Persona series, and I'm not gonna act like I am, but Persona 5 was a milestone for the series in many ways. It was the first Persona game developed from the ground up for high-definition systems. The prior game, aptly named Persona 4, released in 2008, 2 years after the PS3 launch, but it was still a PS2 baby. But Persona 5 was when Persona finally hit high-definition systems a decade after they launched. Persona 5 didn't launch until 2016 in Japan, 8 years after 4 released. At the time, it was the longest wait for a new Persona game, but that's also recently been surpassed by the wait for Persona 6, which hasn't even been announced yet. 5 was announced all the way back in 2013, targeting a 2014 release on the PS3, but it was delayed a few years till 2016 in Japan and 2017 in the States. Still got a PS3 release though. This just doesn't look right. Regardless, it came out and did really well. The best-selling Shin Megami Tensei game is Shin Megami Tensei 5 with a respectable 1.6 million units, but Persona 5 said that's cute and sold 8.7 million units with the help of Persona 5 Royal. In late 2019 in Japan and early 2020 in the States, Persona 5 Royal launched, being a remastered and enhanced version of the original game. This isn't new for Persona. Persona 3 had Persona 3 Fest and Persona 4 had Persona 4 Golden. It's a tradition with Persona, but Royal alone is responsible for 5.5 million of Persona 5 sales, so yeah, you bet your ass Atlas is still milking the hell out of Persona 5. Persona 5 Tactica? Sure, I didn't want Persona 6 anyways. Hey, at least we got Persona 3 Reload. I can't wait to get immersed in the world of Persona 3 again. Oh, look at that, it's Joker.
Persona 5 is goddamn everywhere, even on my TV.
Well, I guess we should get going, huh?
The best place to start would of course be the game's opening cutscene. Royal contains a new opening animation, and I will say I like the original, but I like Royal's more. It's exciting, full of action, and is a great representation of everything that will go on to happen in the game. And booting into the game itself, we enter one of the greatest openings in any game. Persona 5 opens in a casino. We see worried patrons and a shadowy figure moving around. We slowly see the figure better and better until an upwards pan fully reveals our protagonist, Joker, holding a briefcase. Immediately, the briefcase engages your imagination. What's in it? Money? Drugs? Chips? You have no idea what it is, but you already know it's something important. Patrons and security spot him, but he's clearly unbothered as he continues along with a smirk on his face. Then into gameplay as you're treated with what a lot of this game is: dialogue. Shadowy heads are talking to you, clearly your cohorts. You hear a mysterious communication which someone notices, but another says to ignore and focus on escaping. And with that, it's on to actual gameplay as you escape. It's a bit awkward at first, at least I personally am used to being able to to freely jump in games, but here you have to go to a ledge and press A, and it's an automatic action, which is interesting. Security keeps going after you, and just a second later you run into security guards who then transform into monsters, but this doesn't faze Joker. He instead smirks, does a flips, lands on one, and rips their face off, which engages you in your first battle as the guard transforms into some weird beast. In the battle, you're presented with your action menu, but will more than likely just press A since that simply attacks. So Joker slashes at the enemy and then pulls out a gun shooting them. When I first saw this made me laugh so hard. I'm so used to RPGs being in traditional fantasy settings. You have swords and magic, but Joker pulling out a gun in his first attack made me lose it.
Like, imagine you're some fantastical monster and you're battling some warrior, and he just does this.
I've always thought when playing RPGs, what if I just had a gun and shot him? Think of Raiders of the Lost Ark. The guy in Cairo swings his sword all around menacingly just for Indiana Jones to pull out his gun and shoot him. It's a really funny concept to me, and it made me laugh so hard here. The gunshot stuns the enemy, and you're given another turn, introducing you to the one more system. Being given another chance to attack will also more than likely make you curious about the other actions you can perform, such as Persona. And trying it out, you'll learn that Personas essentially act as magic abilities. More powerful attacks you can use that'll cost a resource. After winning the battle, Joker continues his escape heading into the back rooms. You're introduced to another mechanic, Stealth, using it to sneak towards a security guard. And you're also introduced to Joker's grappling hook, which can be used to reach higher places. Anyways, in a bigger room, Joker is surrounded by enemies, and the weird readings also come closer to Joker. But it ends up looking like someone Joker would work with. The other masked figure throws a sword into an enemy, and the game's battle-themed takeover kicks off. The stranger takes care of the monsters and then reveals that she knows Joker and used to rely on him, but she's now looking to prove herself by helping him. They enter battle together, and she keeps alluding to the fact that she's trying to help him, which, like, yeah, you did. You proved yourself. Just shut the hell up and defeat the monsters. In battle, she stuns all the monsters, and then you're introduced to all-out attacks, which just looks so damn epic. After the battle, they part ways, and the stranger will help Joker escape by distracting the guards more. Joker continues his escape into a cutscene as he enters the dining area of the casino, noticing he has to exit through a window. The guards think they have him trapped, but he runs across the railings, letting out a sarcastic "See ya" before leaping out the window. He lands safely and gets back up, only to be met with a barrage of lights from enemies who the Phantom Thieves couldn't detect. It's a whole damn police force set out to capture him. Joker tries to escape up a ladder, but is met by more cops up top, who knock him back down to the ground where he's restrained by the police. An officer reveals that a member of the team sold him out, and then he's arrested.
Well, and that concludes Persona 5's opening. I think it's pretty good.
Persona 5's opening is so good in so many ways. It lightly introduces the protagonist and many of the game's core mechanics while still keeping a lot of things vague. You don't know who these characters are, why they're here, and yet it still hooks you. A lot of things here, such as battles and some other mechanics, aren't new if you played a Persona game prior to this, but with Persona 5 being the best-selling Persona game ever, this was many people's introduction to Persona, and it is so good as that. I was completely hooked by the opening, and looking deeper into it, analyzing it, it's one of the most well-crafted openings in any game. It's absolutely perfect. I won't talk this in depth about the rest of the game, but I felt like the opening deserved it since it's so damn good. Anyway, back to the story. Later he's being interrogated, beaten, and drugged. Someone notices him looking at a camera and asks if he really thinks that can be used as evidence, establishing the corruption in the system. They then read out Joker's crimes and lament how he seems to have been enjoying it. You then pick your difficulty.
And hear me out, I'm a weak bitch, and I'm not afraid to admit it.
I played on safe mode, which isn't just easy, but it will also revive your whole party if Joker dies in combat. And let me just say, that is a godsend. This may tick some off, but let me just say, if this game was constantly handing me my ass and I was struggling to get through these battles just so I could experience the story, I'd be left with a sour taste in my mouth. So having the option to play it in baby bitch mode is a good thing, and great news, you can play it at whatever difficulty you want. After picking your difficulty, they have you sign your name, which is the name entry screen, and I gotta say, that's a really creative way to contextualize it. Now, Joker has two supposed names, either Ren or Akira. I named him Nike Studios, but for simplicity, I'll be referring to him as Joker to not upset the Ren or Akira communities. Nike Studios, that is my name. It sure as hell is. After entering Joker's names, you're introduced to Sei Nijima, a prosecutor who's here to talk to Joker. Sei's been working on Joker's case and wants to know everything, which is funny because she apparently doesn't have enough time, but also enough time for Joker to talk about the last 8 months. And And that's the framing device for most of the game. It's a flashback. Joker is recalling the events of the past 8 months to say, and as he does that, you play through and live through that time. The game starts at the beginning of April with Joker moving to Tokyo on probation. We see in flashbacks that one night while out, Joker came across a drunk douchebag abusing a woman. Joker intervened and the drunk guy sued Joker, won, and put him on probation. So Joker is now on probation and must live here for a year. He lives with Sojiro Sakura, who owns a coffee shop called LeBlanc and makes Joker live in a dusty attic, and for the year, Joker has to go to school and stay out of trouble. That night, he visits this place called the Velvet Room, where he's being imprisoned. This is where you manage a bunch of little RPG things, but you come here time and time again throughout the story. It's not relevant to bring up every time it shows up, but it's at least worth mentioning. During the year, he visits the Velvet Room often, and during that year, we of course see Joker gather the Phantom Thieves as they steal the hearts of their enemies.
Ah, God, why did I have to be Persona 5? You know how much explaining that is?
Joker and his friends are able to enter an alternate reality called the Metaverse, full of shadows, which are these game's monsters. In the real world, the Phantom Thieves come across multiple evil adults who abuse their power, so they change their hearts. In the Metaverse, all their targets have bases that warp real-life locations into what they view that place as. These are called palaces and act as the game's dungeons, so the Phantom Thieves have to infiltrate and work their way through the palace with the ultimate goal of stealing the treasure. The treasure is the actual physical manifestation of their heart's evil desire, and to make the treasure appear in the first place, the thieves send a calling card, basically altering the target, which makes their treasure appear. Then defeat the boss, which is usually their own shadow self, and steal the treasure. The palaces are pretty standard dungeons requiring you to solve various puzzles and fight a bunch of enemies, just your typical RPG affairs. But what makes this game, or more so the Persona series as a whole, unique is that you have a time limit. Each target will say by this date they will do this thing, so you have to infiltrate their palace and steal their treasure before that date. Thing is, this is a very loose time limit. It's not like Majora's Mask where you have just a few hours then you have to restart everything. When you're in a palace, you have an infinite amount of time. Time only passes when you exit the palace, and it's the same for the whole game. The whole game goes by a day-by-day system. Every day you have to do your typical everyday things. Most days you'll have to go to school, then afterwards you'll have time to do whatever you want. During a palace you can of course infiltrate and work on it, but you don't have to every day. You can knock it out on the first day, then chill the rest of the time, which is what I did. But the game lets you choose when you want to do this, which I really love. During each time slot you can do one activity. At the beginning of the game you can only do something after school. After you do that activity you can return home to LeBlanc and can do something there, but you can't go out at night. Later on though, Sojiro lets you, giving you 2 time slots to do activities during the day, and that's where a ton of the strategy in this game comes from. Everything you can do has benefits as they'll either up some stats or improve your relationship with someone. You can hang out with your friends, but they're only available on certain days, so you have to pick how you're going to spend your time wisely. Hanging out with your friends ups your confidant rank with them, and as you rank up your confidants, you get various abilities and benefits, making it worth your time to hang out with them. Each confidant has a little storyline where you see a ton of character development with them. The other thing you can do is just various activities which increase various stats. You have this star of your 5 social stats: guts, knowledge, charm, kindness, and proficiency. Taking on the challenge of eating a giant burger or watching a scary movie will up your guts. Studying or watching quiz shows will up your knowledge. Taking heated baths or drinking certain types of coffee will up your charm. Tending to your plants or cleaning LeBlanc will up your kindness. And spending time at the batting cages or crafting things ups your proficiency. Each of these stats have tons of other things you can do. These are just random examples of each. Improving all these stats help you progress certain confidants and let you do other activities, so every time you have a free moment, you really have to consider what you want to do with that time. And to me, this is one of the most ingenious aspects of Persona. You don't have unlimited time, so every day you have to think about what you want to do. What confidants do you want to work on? What stats do you want to improve? What do you think will make your playthrough easier? It's brilliant design and makes everything you do feel important. Everything is a small piece of the puzzle. Anyway, let's talk about the storyline. Basically, I want to talk about all your party members, targets, and also the palaces themselves, and I think it's easiest to do it all together. So let's just start. On Joker's first day of school, he comes across another student named Don, who's then picked up by Kamoshida, who turns out to be the school's teacher, captain of the volleyball team, and also the first target. After Kamoshida drives away with An, you meet another student, Ryuji. Joker and Ryuji head to school together, but on the way, they slip into the metaverse and end up in a giant castle, which is owned by Kamoshida. Turns out Kamoshida is a pedo and tries to get on to, with him, and threatens to kick her friend off the volleyball team if she doesn't. And he also abuses the other students, and yet he's held in high regard by many of the school's faculty and staff. His palace is a castle as he basically sees himself as the king of the school. They head inside and are captured by Kamoshida, who pulls a me and walks around his palace in nothing but underwear and a cloak. Joker and Ryuji's personas awaken, and they also meet Morgana, a cat who basically forms the Phantom Thieves. Morgana helps guide Joker and Ryuji through the palace, and during this palace, An's persona also awakens, and we now have our all-star starting lineup for the Phantom Thieves. Ryuji is the man, Joker's day one friend. He's that one friend who's not smart, but is still so damn lovable and funny. He's prone to getting hot-headed, but he's also well-intentioned. Oh, and he also likes to say for real a lot.
For real?
Ann is also a real one. She can also get heated at points, and I will say, I'm not a huge fan of how sexualized she is at points. Like, beyond her costume, there's multiple moments where she'll reveal her leg or pull her shirt away from her chest bits, and the guys pull the classic Mark Zuckerberg at the 2025 inauguration.
Kinda lame, but overall a very likable character. Which I can't say about Morgana.
Morgana is a widely disliked character for some good reasons. As a character, I mean, I like her. In the metaverse, she takes on the form of a, well, I don't really know what to call this, but in the real world she takes the form of a cat. She lost her memories before the game and she hopes that while on this quest with the Phantom Thieves, she'll regain them. She has some annoying dialogue, but more than anything, she comes across as the annoying younger sibling. She's always crushing on Ann, spewing snarky remarks at Ryuji. She's a very fun character, but at points she can get so annoying. For example, after you spend a day in a palace, he won't let you leave LeBlanc, which is super annoying. Also, there's a part in the story when she leaves the team and you find her in a palace and she tries to be all, "We don't need you," and it's just like, come on bro, you're not as badass as you think you are. Go back on the bench where you belong. Yeah, as soon as you get your 5th party member, Morgana becomes the best bench warmer in the world. He's constantly praying he'll get placed back on the team, but it'll be a cold day in hell before that happens. These 4 make up your party in the first palace, and it's a damn good one. This palace of course goes more in depth on the basic of dungeon crawling here. The theming is a tad generic, a medieval castle, but the music is pretty damn good. That's par for the course with this game's palaces, but I still feel like I gotta mention the music. Persona 5's battle system is one of the most engaging systems in any RPG. At first it seems pretty traditional. Attack, magic, defend, gun, what? And that's what I like about it. It feels like a traditional RPG battle system, but it has all these quirks that make it Persona and really engaging, like Personas. As I mentioned, these are like spells in many other RPGs. Special abilities you can do at the expense of a stat. Here, SP and sometimes HP. The really cool thing though is that all Personas are almost like Pokemon, in which you can get all different types of Persona that fall under different classes and have different abilities. Sometimes in battles, monsters will surrender and you can choose to finish them off, get money from them, or get their Persona. Persona collecting isn't a core mechanic per se, but it's something worth doing since having personas of different types will give you different abilities and help a certain confidants. However, what I really love about this battle system is the one more system. Enemies have an elemental weakness of sorts, and when you use that weakness against them, not only will it do more damage and stun them, but you also get a second turn. This was of course in the opening, but the one more you get there is just a drop in the bucket of what you can do with one more. There's baton pass, where you give your turn or pass the baton to another party member. This is great for when there's another enemy with a different weakness, because then you can baton pass to a party member that can exploit that weakness. You can also use the extra turn to just do more damage or heal, but getting an extra turn as a reward for exploiting an enemy's weakness is awesome and just so satisfying to pull off. If you baton pass to a party member who weakens the other enemies or just stun all the enemies in general, you'll get a hold up, and from there you can continue fighting normally, talk to the enemy to get their persona, or perform an all-out attack. I briefly mentioned it in the opening as well, but the all-out attack is a super powerful team attack with a really cool animation, and it ends on an awesome victory screen which has art of the character who engaged the hold up to begin with. These are so cool and perfectly reflect these characters and their personalities. And my god, Yusuke is so damn fruity in his. Another cool team attack here are Showtime attacks. These are just team up attacks between 2 characters and they all have unique cutscenes. The Showtimes are awesome though. I don't remember how you get them to begin with. They just randomly appear, but they're still really cool and I'll never skip one. Everything considered, the combat system here is just so good and easily one of my favorites from any RPG. RPG combat is known for being monotonous and repetitive, and while more traditional battle systems can definitely be that, you can still make a really engaging one too if you know what you're doing. Anyways, back to palaces. The second target is Madarame. He's an artist who's becoming well renowned for his work. You run into one of his pupils, Yusuke Kitagawa, who wants to paint a portrait of Ann.
Well, at least he isn't sexualizing her.
Oh wait, I'm sorry, he wants to paint a nude portrait of Ann.
Because of course he does.
Antics continue, and you realize that Madarame sucks and he's not a true artist. He plagiarizes his art and steals from his students. Yusuke joins the team and he's easily my favorite non-Joker protagonist. Yusuke is really proper and polite. Of the guys, he's easily the least pervy, which checks out. Anyways, Madarame's palace. It's pretty good. It's an art museum representing how he sees his seemingly humble studio as a big museum known for its famous art even though he didn't do any of it himself. There's a lot of really cool looking areas, and the music, while not the best palace theme by a long shot, it's still good. I really love the twist of this storyline though. Madarame claims his greatest masterpiece is Sayori, but as it turns out, Sayori was actually a piece by Yusuke's mother, and while it was just a woman in Madarame's version, the real Sayori has the woman cradling a baby, which is none other than Yusuke. It's a gut-wrenching moment discovering this because Yusuke really admired Madarame, but to find out he stole and defaced his own mother's painting just hurts so much. The third target is Kaneshiro. First off, I don't like the name because it's easy to confuse with Kamoshida. Second, this is the lamest target. Kaneshiro barely has a connection to the Phantom Thieves, and the connection there is so lame. Makoto Nijima spends the first 20 hours of the game seeming like the preppy model student, Miss Student Council having to do all these special assignments from the principal, but when some students seem to get wrapped up in some weird plot outside school, the principal asks Makoto to figure out what's going on.
And why is that her responsibility?
It turns out these students are running jobs for the fucking mafia, and you're taken to the boss Kaneshiro. I just don't like how the connection between this target and the thieves isn't personal at all. Kamoshida was trying to blackmail On and kick Ryuji off the track team, Madarame defiled Yusuke's mother's painting, but Kaneshiro just has some students running errands and that's Makoto's responsibility. Speaking of Makoto, she's a great character. Gotta admit, I didn't like her at all the first 20 hours or so, cause she just seems like the nosy student council person, but when she joins the Phantom Thieves, she grows so much past that. She's still the most uptight member, but she becomes more willing to rebel and take risks when it fits. Of all the thieves, it feels like she grows the most, which is awesome. As for Kaneshiro's palace, I'm very mixed. It's a bank which sucks up money from the streets of Shibuya, which is pretty damn unsubtle. And in case you don't get it, in Kaneshiro's mind, people are ATMs. Hope that's clear enough for you. I like the theming and especially the music, really good. What I'm just not really into is, well, the rest of it. More than anything, it just feels like a whatever palace for me. It's not bad, it just feels like another palace. I like the bank theme, but it still feels somewhat generic. Later in the palace, you delve into the vault, which is aesthetically cooler, but there's these lame password puzzles that I gladly looked up the answers to. Overall, just a very mid-palace and storyline with some really good music. The next target is an interesting one as they want their heart stolen. The thieves get weird texts by someone who goes by Alibaba, and it turns out they're living in Sojiro's home. The target is also the next member of the thieves, Futaba Sakura. When she was younger, she witnessed her mother commit suicide right in front of her.
Jesus. You start all your conversations like that?
And this messed her up so bad she turned into a Discord mod. She stays inside all day, hampered by her trauma, but after hearing about the thieves, she thinks they can help her. So enter her palace, this being the stereotypical desert level. I will say it's cool that you have to go to a nearby abandoned town for a minute, and beyond that, it's a smart way of bringing an RPG cliche here and making it feel natural. Futaba's palace is a pyramid, as her trauma from what happened with her mother is like a tomb. And the layout of the palace is cool as well. You have to get to the top of these stairs, but there are a bunch of gates in the way which you have to open up to progress. Good puzzles, fun theming, and having the new party member also be the target is very interesting. The music is also a strong contender for my favorite palace theme in this game. It's just so good. Futaba technically doesn't join the party until after the palace, but I may as well talk about her here. Futaba's cool, I like her, she's a very fun character. She's socially inept, which is a fun quirk of her. She's constantly having small meaningless feuds with Yusuke, which is really entertaining. The way she treats Morgana is also funny, but what I'm not a fan of is romancing her. I like Futaba as Joker's younger sister. In many scenarios, he feels like her protective older brother, and with her being Sojiro's adoptive daughter and Sojiro feeling like a father figure to Joker, it feels more natural for them to be siblings. Now, for the fifth palace and final member of the Phantom Thieves, the target is Okumura, the CEO of Okumura Foods. And guess what? Okumura Foods is a shitty company and Okumura doesn't give a fuck about his employees. His palace is a sci-fi production plant with a lot of weird shit, but with the overarching theme being that the employees are mindless machines. There's some really fun puzzles where you set these mechanical arms to lunchtime and they stop for 30 seconds, which is a hilarious and painfully accurate job at the working world. Everyone hates Okumura's palace, but I like it a lot. I really like the theming, the deeper meaning, the music, another strong contender for my favorite palace theme. People hate this anti-gravity room, but I didn't think it was that bad. The boss sucked ass though. Okumura kept sending these enemies you had to kill in 2 turns or else they'd all kill themselves or run away way and the fight won't progress until you defeat them. Thankfully with Royal, you get access to a persona called Izami no Okami, which has this move called a Myriad Truce, which does hundreds of damage to all enemies. So I use that to get through this boss fight and the rest of the game, yay. Oh, also the new party member, Haru. She's the daughter of Akumura Foods and can't stand how Akumura is running the company. I really like her connection to this. As I hinted to earlier, the best targets are incredibly personal to one or all the Phantom Thieves, and it doesn't get much more personal than your own blood. The next palace is a pivotal one, that being Sei Nijima. She's the older sister of Makoto, and throughout the whole game, she's been investigating these weird mental shutdowns that have been happening. And after the thief stole Akumura's heart, he just died, so there's a lot of heat on the thieves. But the thieves don't go after Sei on their own volition. Instead, they're practically blackmailed to by Goro Akechi, this dorky ass, fuckface ass, pancake loving motherfucker. He's a detective that you meet in June, and by the time this palace takes place in October/November, he's figured out you're the Phantom Thieves and wants you to steal Sei's heart. So you do, and it's a goddamn casino. Oh yeah, after 60 hours, we're finally catching up with the opening. Sei's palace is great. The theming is awesome. They do a lot of fun things with the casino theme, and of course the casino theme represents how Sei sees the court as a casino, where you've got to win no matter what, even if it means pulling some tricks. And so throughout the palace, you come across multiple points where you have to have this many chips to progress, so you have to cheat at the games to get them. It's a really cool palace, theming wise, and the music is somewhat unique since it's the only palace theme to have lyrics. Also, this palace is unique where you can't fight the boss until the last day. Every other palace you can do it whenever you please, but this palace forces you to not do it until the last day. And that's because as soon as it ends, Futaba notices a bunch of enemies closing in on the casino, so they all split up and Joker heads off on his own to act as a distraction while the rest escape. And that brings us right back to the opening, now with the 60 hours of context under our belts. But what I really love is that you play through the opening again, now with all the new abilities and all the character portraits filled in. It's really cool, and we catch right back up with where the opening ends. Joker escapes, but is immediately caught by what seems to be the whole police force outside, but that still leaves one massive mystery. How did all the police enter the metaverse? Because in the metaverse, all the enemies are shadows, but these are everyday humans. Well, it's not much longer till you find out as we finally catch up with the present. Sei asks you to basically snitch on everyone, and you have to refuse to answer any of it. Then, before she leaves, you have her take a phone and show it to the rat, which of course turns out to be stupid ass, piece of shit ass, no life ass, stupid haircut ass Goro Akechi. He fucking sold us out, that rat. After all those nights playing pool together, and he still betrays you, he brought the cops into the metaverse, and now he's heading to see you where he...
Case closed. This is how your justice ends.
What the fuck?
Akechi kills Joker. He then calls Shido, who is running to be the next Prime Minister of Japan and the true mastermind behind the mental shutdowns. Sei sees proof that he was planning on killing Joker and heads back to where Joker's being held. And then we see a cutscene of the rest of the Phantom Thieves trying to live their lives knowing Joker's in custody. And needless to say, none of them are themselves. Then breaking news reports Joker committed suicide, and in a gut-wrenching scene, we see all the thieves react to the news, ending on Ryuji just completely flabbergasted, before cutting to an extreme close-up on his mouth where he smirks and lets out
We got him.
letting you know something's up. As it turns out, from the moment Akechi asked the thieves to steal Sei's heart, Joker and Morgana knew something was up. When they first met back in June, Morgana was talking about pancakes, and while the thieves can understand Morgana in the real world since they've been to the metaverse, normal people can't. But after Morgana mentions pancakes, Akechi's greedy ass, stupid ass, unlikable ass, preppy ass, dumb ass comes around the corner asking about those pancakes, keying in Morgana that this guy has been to the metaverse before. So not trusting him, Joker, Morgana, and Futaba coordinated a plan since they knew Akechi would do this. What they did was they put a metaverse Joker in a metaverse containment room. They then had Sei show Akechi the phone which sent him into the metaverse, so he killed the metaverse Joker, believing he killed the real Joker. But the real Joker was just fine when Sei went to see him, and since the country thinks the real Joker is dead, the real Joker can leave. It's a bit convoluted, but hey, it works. With Joker back to the thieves though, it's time for one final target, Shido. As I mentioned, he's running to be the next Prime Minister, and during one of his rallies, the thieves go check on him, and Joker has a massive revelation. Shido was the drunk drunk man that put him on probation. So not only is he responsible for all the mental shutdowns, but also taking a year off Joker's life. With that, it's not even a mystery who the final target is, and his palace is on a damn boat. It's a neat idea, but I'm just not a huge fan of it. A lot of it feels like a wild goose chase. You have to find this guy and this guy and this guy just so you can get here, and it just feels like a waste of time. I was also 70 hours into this point, and I was really starting to get exhausted, so it was also kind of grueling to get through. The theme isn't necessarily exciting. Great subtext. It's on a giant boat, because in his eyes, Japan can sink, but him and his higher-ups will be forever floating well off. The music is good, but not one of my favorites, and there's a bunch of puzzles I'm just not a fan of. Like these mice ones, no thank you. Later on, you run into none other than fucky ass, shitty ass, fuck offy ass, go fuck yourself ass Akechi who wants to fight you. Fight him, he reveals he has daddy issues because Shido is his father. He seems to die, hip hip hooray. Good palace, but it's definitely on the weaker end of the spectrum for me. After changing Shido's hearts, there still seems to be some corruption. So the thieves go after their most ambitious target yet, the public's heart, purifying everyone. And it's found in the depths of Mementos. Now, what's Mementos?
My worst fucking nightmare.
Mementos is a giant, multicolored, procedurally generated dungeon that's basically this game's version of Persona 3's Tartarus. It's basically the metaverse's collective palace for everyone whose hearts aren't majorly distorted. And it's here that all the side quests take place. Throughout the game, you get a bunch of requests from people who want the Phantom Thieves to change people's hearts. Sometimes it's a part of a confidant rank, but usually it's just a rumor you overhear and can do for extra rewards. Anyways, as I was saying, it's a lot like Tartarus from Persona 3, which I did like. Persona 3 doesn't have palaces like 5 does. Instead, all the traditional dungeon crawling happens in Tartarus, and I like Tartarus as that. It's the dungeon of Persona 3. But I hate Mementos because Persona 5 already has dungeons. The palaces are great 4-hour bites of classic dungeon crawling gameplay, the perfect amount for each 10-hour chunk of story. So I never felt like going to Mementos because it was just more dungeon crawling, but I already got my fill from the main palaces. But what would have been nice to know is that for the final dungeon, you have to go to the bottom of Mementos. Fuck me. That would have been nice to know. Instead, I'm spending an hour fucking descending through Mementos. The final palace isn't really much of a palace. I mean, there's puzzles, but it's not as deep as the others. The music is really good though. Feels great as the final palace theme. At the bottom, you find a giant holy grail, which you try to destroy to end the metaverse and corruption in people's hearts. The following fight is grueling as you make basically no progress. The music is absolutely banger though. The holy grail reveals that he can't be defeated because nobody is a free thinker. They're fine with how things are, making the Grail eternal. The Grail sends the thieves back to the real world, and Mementos fuses with the reality, which a lot of people just can't see.
Nothing beats a good old metaphor about people thinking hell on earth is normal because they're so stupid and blind. Happy 2025, everyone.
All of a sudden, the thieves start writhing in pain and they disappear, with Joker disappearing last, ending up in the Velvet Room.
Oh, fucking shit. I mean, 80 hours in, and I still can't beat this? I just give up.
Nicus. Wasn't expecting you here.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting to come here, but I quit. I'm done. I mean, 100 fits of whining about shit nobody cares about wasn't a big deal, because none of it required me to beat a 100-hour-long game.
It is. Too much for you?
I love the game, I truly do, but I've spent over 3 days playing it, and I'm still not done.
I thought I could use my obsession of complaining as a way to tackle my backlog, but this game is standing in my way.
It is, which is why you must beat it.
What?
Nicus, do you not see? It's been in front of you this whole time. This game is a shadow in your heart. It's preventing you from conquering the rest of your backlog. And if you stop now, you may never beat not just this game, but your entire backlog as a whole.
No, you're right. This is like the final test. If I can beat and whine about this game, I can whine about anything. And I'm already 40 minutes in. Really, I have 5 minutes left considering all I have left is the final boss fight.
That and the royal content.
You're right, fuck.
Either way, I'll see you in 10 minutes when life will have changed.
Joker ends up in the Velvet Room where he's to be executed and has to fight the guards. But during the fight, one of the guards realize they aren't supposed to be doing this. They realize that they've been split and manipulated by an imposter Igor the whole time, who turns out to actually be the god of control, the same spirit as the Holy Grail. With it now being discovered, it gives up and reveals the real Igor. Joker then goes around and finds and frees his friends as he shares a sentimental moment with them all. This really hits hard as it makes you think of how far every single one of these characters have come, how much they've grown, how your relationships with them have evolved. It's simply put beautiful. After gathering everyone and leaving the Velvet Room, it's on to the final climb to the Holy Grail, which feels truly epic. It's what the whole game is built to, and now it'll be the showdown of the century. Once reaching the top, it's time to engage the Grail again, but this time it's vulnerable as it has these vessels that give its power, but cutting them weakens it. After defeating the Grail, it grows into whatever the hell this is. Yalda Bayoth. God, what a final boss. It's a long fight, but being on easy mode, it's no issue. After defeating this thing and stealing the treasure, the metaverse disappears, and along with it goes Morgana.
Oh, thank God.
I'm kidding, of course. It's an emotional scene with some really emotional final words from my favorite least favorite cat. The thieves disband, and that night, Sei runs into Joker and tells him that Joker will basically need to turn himself in to testify against Shido. But then guess who shows up? Motherfucking dopey ass, grumpy ass, happy ass, sleepy ass, bashful ass, sneezy ass, dog ass Akechi. Akechi agrees to testify against Shido to lock him up so you don't have to, so you can go home and be with the thieves. Over the next week, all the criminal proceedings take place, Shido is charged, and the lady he was abusing when Joker first crossed him testifies him to clear his name. So it seems like a happy ending, and that's almost where Persona 5 ends, but Royal still has 10 hours to go. But before I start talking about Royal's new content, I need to talk about two pivotal characters. First off is Kasumi Yoshizawa, the redhead girl who saves you during the opening. She was a new character created for Royal, and you can tell. She's awkwardly shoved into many random moments throughout the game to set her up. At one point, you even enter some weird palace with her, where her persona awakens. Anyways, while she doesn't join the thieves for the main ending, she does hang out with them after, and on New Year's Day, Joker plans on visiting a shrine with her. The other important character to mention is Dr. Maruki, another original character for Royal. He's the school's counselor, and to unlock the Royal content, you have to max out his confidant by a certain date in November. After doing so, you're all set. The night of New Year's Eve, you have a weird dream at school. The next day, you go to the shrine with Kasumi, but notice weird things. There's this weird blue-eyed guy in the shop, Futaba's mom is alive, Haru's father is alive, weird stuff. That night, Akechi visits Joker and tells him he's realized the same thing. Reality has seemed to have shifted and nobody else has noticed. Kasumi calls Joker and lets him know a palace appeared, so he and Akechi go check it out with Kasumi. They explore the palace a bit and discover none other than Dr. Maruki, the palace's ruler. Trust me, it's much more effective when you play the game because you've known him for 70 hours and don't ever expect malintent from him. And, well, in a way, he doesn't have malintent. He's the one who shifted reality. During his time as the school counselor, he learned of all the students' desires, and in this reality, he made them come true. An's friend is still in town, Makoto's family's around, and they're still able to be a family. Madarame is a good person. He even knew Futaba wanted her mother back, and the blue-eyed guy, it's Morgana in a human form, exactly what he wanted.
It brings up a really tough moral dilemma that Joker must bring up to the rest of the thieves. This is the ideal reality, but is it the right reality? Is it truly their lives? Is this what they worked for, what they suffered for? It's a really intriguing setup for Maruki's palace and makes it really easy to keep on going through it, despite the fact that you just spent the last 80 hours of your life playing through this game.
You also find out that Kasumi isn't actually Kasumi's name. It's her sister's name, who died saving who we know as Kasumi. Her real name is Samir, but after her sister's passing, she took up her sister's name, basically pretending to be her. Over the next few days, Joker spends some time with each of the thieves, helping them realize that this reality that they're living in is a lie.
But we need to stop for a second and talk about a conspiracy so particular, I have to wear this hat because how else am I going to look like a crazy person? Maruki created what is the ideal reality. This is what the Phantom Thieves all wanted. Haru's father is alive, Futaba's mother is alive, and interestingly enough, Akechi is alive. Now, it seemed like Akechi coming back on Christmas Eve meant that Akechi never died, but the thing is, after they destroy Maruki's ideal reality, Akechi disappears again, and it turns out that a Joker did go with Sei on Christmas Eve and testify against Shido, which means that Akechi did not survive Shido's palace after all. It's a little confusing because it seemed like Maruki started his ideal reality on Christmas Eve, but it didn't start until New Year's Day. It's confusing. It's fucking Persona. What do you think? Sorry, I almost had some sense knocked back into me. But basically, the general gist is that Akechi lives in Joker's ideal reality, which means Joker is gay for Akechi, and this fan art is canon. I just wanted an excuse to put this here because this is fucking beautiful.
The thieves all take some time to process it, and after talking with all of them, Joker heads back to the palace with Akechi, and when they're in a tight spot, the Phantom Thieves reunite and save them. It's a truly epic moment and exciting to have the crew back together. And with that, you dive right back into traditional Persona gameplay. You're given a date to finish the palace by, and from there, it's a smooth ride to the end. The royal content is awesome, and if you don't experience it, you really miss out. There's a level of frustration to me that it's missable, but at the same time, it's pretty easy to get, and if you tell anyone who's played it before that you're playing royal, they'll tell you what you need to do to get the content. I will say though, it's a bit weird to have the story continue. Like, the main story ends with you defeating a god and saving the world. Do it again. But the story of the royal content is great. While it's not as deep as the rest of the game, it's still incredible.
I'm just a few hours away, but I can already say that Persona 5 is one of my favorite games of all time.
Persona 5 Royal is nothing short of sublime. Regardless of it being an RPG with heavy visual novel elements and an anime style, three genres I'm not necessarily heads over heels for, I fell in love with this game. And looking back, it's easy to see why. Everything with this game is sheer perfection. The characters are wonderful, the RPG gameplay is super engaging, the story is fascinating. Sure, it's a long game, taking anywhere from 80 to 100 hours to complete, but that made my connection to this game and its characters so much deeper. I've spent hours of my life hanging out with these characters, seeing them struggle and grow, watching Joker go from a nobody being forced to move out here alone to being the head of the most legendary friend group of all time. You play through a year of someone's life and perfectly experience what it's like to be them. And it's also relatable too. I mean, sure, I don't have to delve into the metaverse to steal people's hearts, but I live a packed life with school, work, and whining, and to make it all work, it takes good time management, which this game beautifully mirrors. This is a game that, regardless of its genre, I feel like everyone can get into and enjoy. It's such a well-made game in every way, and regardless of it being so long, it's a game everyone should play. And after 80 hours, I'm glad to say I've almost beaten it. But I still have this palace to go, and it's time to finally finish this game so I can say I finally played Persona 5 Royal.
Checkmate.
Oh my god, I finally did it. I finally played Persona 5 Royal. And you know what that means? There's 4 more of these fucking games. Thanks for watching, and good fucking Nicus.